Hello, everyone. Welcome to our panel about practical methods of increasing inclusion in campus gaming and esports communities. So I guess we'll start with introducing ourselves. So I'm Tasha. My preferred pronouns are she, her. I used to go to the University of Manchester, and now I'm creative director at the NUEL. Anisah, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Anisah, or Geomancy. I am the League of Legends product manager at the NUEL, but I'll also be running the women's tournament that David has just mentioned. I'm also a third year at Warwick studying French and German, and I was the previous media secretary for Warwick Esports.
Cool. Abby?
Hello, I'm Abby, she, her. I'm a Loughborough graduate. I chaired our video game society for 2 years. I've now gone on to work for the NUEL as one of the community team, and I also work for Loughborough Students' Union. I'm in my second year as one of their sabbaticals.
And Angela?
Hi, I'm Angela. I'm non-binary and I use both he, her and she, him. She, her and he, him pronouns. I was formerly president of the Newcastle University Video Gaming and Esports Society. I graduated last month, so I'm currently unemployed, unfortunately.
Cool. So I guess we'll kick off to begin with. Where do you start when you want to develop a diverse and inclusive and kind of welcoming community on campus?
So I think
Go.
So I think the main place to start, especially if you're a mostly male-dominated society and your committee is mostly made up of men, is to understand that you won't always understand what the problems are and to listen to what minority groups tell you are the problems. So when I first went to Newcastle, the entire committee was full of men, and I'd try and explain to them why things weren't particularly welcoming, and they just asked me to explain in a lot of detail why things weren't okay, and it was quite a lot of mental effort to go to, and a lot of pressure to put on me as well to try and explain why things that are really obvious to me are problems, you know? So I think it's important to listen to what people are telling you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a similar experience at Loughborough. We're quite a male-dominated university, about 70%. And obviously, esports is often dominated by men as well. So when I first went onto committee, it was chairman and a lot of language that, wasn't very inclusive. Mm. So it can be small changes that start the ball rolling that can help make people feel more welcome. Simple language changes can mix up the status quo, which is never easy to change immediately. It is small steps and easy wins that can get you there.
I think it's also important to add that having change is nice, but you also need to, start the change from the top. So having a committee preaching, inclusivity and diversity within their society, and then also believing in those sort of things and not going behind society's back and then in their own group chats be really discriminatory and harass people. It's best to start from the top and then work your way down. So yeah, preach what you believe, and also not go against what you're preaching as well.
Yeah, you got to lead it by example, right? If you're on committee, you're there because you're representing the views of your entire society. So if you're only representing one group, you're actively discouraging another group through your own acts. So yeah, has to come from the top, and it's not easy if you're the only voice as well that's backing you up. And we'll chat a little bit later about how you can get some support if you are the only person who's trying to make change.
Yeah, for sure. So what about if you were in a situation where you're not the change maker in your society, or you're just a member of the society, and you can recognize that there's these problems happening, and you don't know how to make those changes because you're not for example, like the president or the secretary, what sort of options do you have to make change?
Yeah, I think it depends on your own personal barriers when you're in that position. It may be that the change maker, so the chair or the president, is quite receptive to hearing your views, or it could be, like Angela said, that you're often having to do all the emotional weight yourself and explaining where you're coming from, and that can get very quickly tiring, and it might wear you down to where you just give up. It's quite important to find support. Instead of it just being your voice, having someone else on the committee, or even if members have also voiced complaints, they can be another voice to back you up so that you have an ally in what you're saying. If you don't have that internally, then you can look externally to your students' union for help, whether it be getting you training. It could be that if the chair or the president is like particularly problematic, that you can get help either getting them training, or it may be even that you remove the president if it's really that problematic. I'd say for the most part it doesn't get that bad, right? But yeah, definitely turn to your SU if no one else can help you.
I think it's also important to add that no idea is stupid. So like if you have an idea and you feel like it'd be good for the society, especially in terms of increasing inclusivity, just put it forward and see what people say in your committee. And if you don't get much support, as Abby has said, just go to your SU, go to other people, and you'll find support, especially if it is a good idea.
I've found in the past that students' unions do take these sorts of issues very seriously. So if you find that the committee are particularly problematic or not listening to you, I find that the students' union will tend to back you up and take the problem very seriously, or they should anyway. And if they don't, then that's a serious problem with the students' union. Thankfully, Newcastle's is lovely, so...
Yeah, we had a pretty good student union at Manchester as well. So I guess we've established that if things are difficult within a society, the student union is an option that you can go to. But I suppose that a lot of members of a society or a committee don't really know who in the student union they can talk to when things are going wrong. So if one of you could expand on that a little bit.
At Loughborough, at least, and I think it's actually a legal requirement across the country that a student union does have someone responsible on their sabbatical team. So that is the student representative team. So they've been elected as students to take on responsibility to look over solely welfare and diversity at your university. It might be that they're their own position. So you might have a welfare and diversity officer. It might be that it's the role of, say, the president or the vice president to do that. So they can often be your first point of call. But yeah, Angela, do you want to talk about societies exec? Because I know you are part of... Yeah.
For a short period of time, I think when I was my first year I was president, I worked on the society's executive committee, which is made up of executives from a variety of different societies, and they sort of make decisions in terms of what money to give out and what punishments to deal to societies as well. And a lot of issues tend to get discussed there, and they're usually headed by the activities officer. So like if you have a problem and you contact the activities officer, often you'll get invited down to the executive committee, you'll explain what the problem is, and they'll discuss amongst themselves what can be done to help you, give you resources, or maybe would they take sort of responsibility themselves and say, okay, we're going to talk to the society and say X, Y, or Z, or punish them in whatever way, because clearly what they're doing is unacceptable, etc. There's a lot of different people you can talk to. I think most SUs have a dedicated welfare officer. There's usually dedicated activities officers. There's a whole panel of students who are dedicated to helping people with these kinds of problems. So.
Yeah, a lot of the time as well, your activities or your societies officer will provide you with some kind of foundation for making your own either moderation tools or like a code of conduct. So that can be a really solid foundation to help make a small change in your society. So if you have a Discord and you have very clearly rules on display where, you know, you're saying that harassment isn't acceptable and that you're accepting everyone. Just having that publicly on display can help reassure people that it's a safe space for them. And you don't need to write that yourself, whether it's the any key document that was mentioned before, or guidance from Women in Games, or even your students' union. You should be able to get some help in writing a good, solid code of conduct to keep everyone feeling safe and happy.
I know when we were writing our rules for Discord for Newcastle, we basically looked at the code of conduct that the students' union has and basically copied the main points from that. So stuff about discrimination being unacceptable, we basically just pulled that straight out. And we'd often use that as sort of like, we'd explain that, you know, these are the students' union's rules, you know, we must follow them. It's like, obviously, as executives, these are important rules and we want to enforce them, but also like the SU like enforces these rules as well. It's extremely important if you have someone who's particularly rowdy in the society, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've got to realise that if they're actively being derogatory, that can impact their university life, right? Like they can get reprimanded, they could get suspended. So if you do have particularly problematic people who are kind of fighting you on being more inclusive or don't quite get it, I know in some of the communities I've been a part of, there's that kind of expectation to be edgy as a gamer, and that can often be quite problematic. That they have to realise that they're at university level now, so you're expected to conduct yourself in a manner that represents your university, but also yourself in a good light. So if you ever get a stick for your moderation rulings, they got to know that, you know, if they step out of line, the university could take action as well. It's not just a Discord bot telling them off. It could have real life implications as well.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with a lot of the societies posting their Discord links on socials, for example, and having them linked on Twitter. It's pretty easy for a university or an SU to just join a Discord channel of a society and then find all of the chaotic things that are going on in that Discord.
Yeah. As a SU officer, I definitely creep in some of my society Discords to have a look at what they're doing. And if I see something like a not safe for work channel or something that's not okay, you know, drop them a PM and be like, maybe we'll get you some training on that. But yeah.
Yeah. So I guess what kind of training is usually available from a students' union about things like that?
It depends on the SU, honestly. From facilitating some training through the NUEL, we found that there was quite a large gap between what some societies get given and what some like kind of good SUs are providing. So it can be a mixed bag, but I would hope that at your university there is a push for EDI training, which is I'm going to forget the E word already. Diversity, inclusion, and can anyone help because my brain is shot today? Equality, thank you. Yes.
I had no idea.
Inclusion training. So that'll be the word that's thrown around, which is not particularly student friendly. But they will have someone responsible for welfare at the SU. So you would hope that they've been trained, so therefore they can train you. And if you've not heard about any of your training, make sure to reach out to like your activities tab. You might have a society sabbatical who can signpost you to where that is. Some SUs do really good comprehensive training workshops. Obviously with COVID, that might be online now, but it should still be accessible. And for you to, get the skills that you need to get the ball rolling in your society.
Okay, cool. I guess Anisah or Angela, is there any training that your student union offered to your societies?
So there is, I know our university requires that every society has a welfare officer who deals with these kinds of things, who deals with these problems of welfare and diversity, and they're required to attend a meeting at the start of every year and an obligatory training session, though unfortunately I haven't heard very positive things about it. I hear it's very very basic sort of don't be racist sort of speeches rather than genuine or like more in-depth strategies on how to deal with problematic behaviour. But I believe if you have specific issues that you need taking on, if you contact your SU and ask them the questions directly, or ask to meet with your activities officer or your welfare officer in person, they'll be able to work through your individual issues more closely.
Our SU requires the same, I think. I think we have to have a welfare officer in every society. And they do training for the welfare officer as well. I've not been to it, but I mean, I haven't heard anything bad about it, so I'm assuming it is a good training from the SU.
Yeah, at Loughborough, it's not mandatory. It's something that my committee have pointed that they think it should be. We do offer kind of mediation tools. So the way that we train our societies is that you're there to be a volunteer and do all the fun stuff that comes with being a volunteer. But a lot of the fun stuff also comes with the bad side of dealing with conflict management, mediation, and tools like that. And that's where we will step in. So if you have a problematic member who has like kicked off in Discord, maybe they're harassing someone, then it would be my job to mediate getting a resolution for you so that you don't have to have that difficult conversation yourself, because it gets very taxing very quickly when you're dealing with someone who's just being problematic for no reason. And a lot of the time it's easier for me to kind of like put my bad cop hat on and kind of wade in and tell them what happens if they continue. So you don't have to deal with it on your own at all. And I wouldn't want any committee member to be dealing with like a problematic student on their own either, because it's not fair.
I know when I was dealing with particularly problematic people, I got the best responses when I just said what the consequences were rather than trying to appeal to their emotional side. So basically saying, look, the society will get de-ratified if we allow this behaviour. If you don't stop, we're going to ban you. Like, there's no two ways about it. Or we'd get a bot who would just automatically remove content to deflect the blame away from individual executives, because they can't blame any one person for deleting a comment and be like, oh, why did you delete my content? Are you like sensitive? You know, it's like, oh, you know, the robot did it. Don't upset the robot, you know?
It doesn't have to all be doom and gloom, right? Like there's the moderation side, but there's also the fun side of being more accessible and inclusive in general. Like reaching out and doing collaboration events can be really beneficial to engage students that you wouldn't otherwise. And that can be a really good opportunity to kind of like open your members' eyes to what else there is on campus. So we did simple events, like we went and watched, was it Wonder Woman? This was a while ago, but we went and watched Wonder Woman with the Women's Network, who are a liberation group on campus. And that was really great because we sat down and we had Nando's together afterwards, and you got to ask them questions about what it is that they do. They asked questions about what we do as a video game society, because we had no idea. We're completely different groups, right? And it was really lovely to have that connection. And likewise, if you have any like big campaigns on campus, that can be a sort of fun thing to get involved with that can foster inclusion. So going on a Women's March, getting involved with Black History Month, those sort of national campaigns, your SU will be pushing them anyway, so you might as well get involved. And a lot of the time the work's been done for you. Your student union's already designed all the events for Black History Month, so all you need to do is kind of put your hand up and go, how can we help, or how can we get involved? And that's the fun side, right? Like you're reaching out and you're actively doing more to show that, you know, you want to engage new students.
Yeah, we did a lot of events like that at Newcastle as well whilst I was president, because we have, even nowadays, at Newcastle, we have a problem that when new students come along, they look at the gaming society and their immediate thought is, oh, it's going to be a boys' club. It's going to be really intimidating. I'm interested in video games, but there's no point. So what we often try to do is we would do these collaborative events with other societies like Feminism Society, or It Happens Here Newcastle, who is basically a sexual assault assistant helpline as a society, and we do collaborative events with them. I think we've done like gaming nights exclusively for women and gender minorities. We've had like corners where we set up video games for people to calm down during like conferences which were about particularly heavy subjects, that sort of thing. And those were always very popular because by collaborating with these societies from a very cynical point of view, people knew that we cared about these issues and they'd give us another look and give us a chance. But also, like, demonstrates to your members that you actively care about these issues. And all these events always end up being a load of fun, and you'll end up engaging with new people you wouldn't have otherwise met. I always had a lot of fun doing those events. So
yeah, that's cool. We used to do similar things at University of Manchester. When we ran King of the North, we would have like booths, and we'd invite loads of other societies from the university to come and just like set up a booth and do whatever random things their society do. And then we'd all go out for food after and just find out more about what their society does. It's a really good opportunity to meet more people and kind of broaden your horizons as well. So at these events and in Discord servers, for example, how do you make that a welcoming place? What sort of methods do you use to make those places feel more welcoming to new people or to people from different backgrounds?
A technique that our society has picked up from the new committee, and it was prevalent within our society's Rocket League Discord, is having a point of contact as soon as you join. So we don't actually have a bot that welcomes people. We have actual members of the committee or helpers like welcoming you and asking you what role you'd want. And I think that's quite nice, because it can be quite intimidating to join a Discord full of like hundreds of people and then, you know, see chats going on but not knowing how to include yourself into the chat. But if you've already had someone you've spoken to, and if they've, I guess because they are on the committee and they have some sort of authority over the society itself, it just gives you the confidence to you know, get involved in the conversation and joining games and things like that. So I think that was quite a good idea done from our Rocket League side of our society, and the new committee have adapted it to do it across all servers. So I think, you know, having human contact as soon as you've joined a Discord server or the society is really good.
I think it's important. It's something that the last panel mentioned actually, is that the word esports can, to some people, think the immediate thing that they think is it's too competitive for me. That's not where I want to be. So it's really important to think about the events that you're facilitating and think about different areas of gaming, but also like the social aspect as well of joining a society. You don't join a society just for the key thing that's in their name, right? You join it to find friends and a community. So how are you fostering that community? So yeah, human contact straight away is a really, really good example of straight away that person knows who they can get in touch with again. And they've had introduction and they know something about each other. But then inviting them to an event where they feel comfortable. So not everyone wants to come to like a League of Legends trials straight away, because they might be worried that their like rank's too low. They might be worried that they'll get judged. But maybe if you do like a quiz night or an Animal Crossing evening, or think about games that don't have a competitive nature to them. Like, I guess you can be competitive in Scribble.io, but that kind of game where it's less serious can really help make people feel at ease, so that then when you are running your trials and your more competitive events, they already have like a foot in the door almost, and don't feel like scared off in any way.
Yeah, definitely.
I really enjoy attending viewing parties as well, because that doesn't involve like actually demonstrating your skill in the game, which is often quite intimidating. Because I think there is a big problem of sort of gatekeeping in general. Actually, I remember when I attended my first viewing party at Newcastle, I was really scared that people would start questioning my knowledge of the game. If I like, do I even know which players on which team? Do I know what position they play? When I really just wanted to, you know, sit and see what happened and, you know, learn new things. And I think, you know, it's important to be conscious of that people might be intimidated if you sort of question them too much, or if you generally gatekeep people who are less skilled or have less knowledge in the game, because like people could be like getting into the game and want to learn more, but like everyone has to start out somewhere. So it's important to be conscious of the things that you're asking people straight away, especially people who you're not familiar with or are new to the university experience.
Yeah, I hated being asked immediately after saying I play Dota, what rank are you? Because I don't like play ranked. I play because it's a fun game and I enjoy like the teamwork and all of that aspect. Like, if you'd ask me like what's my favorite hero or what position do I play, it's a much more like open-ended question that you can have a back and forth with. If you ask what's your rank and they go, oh, I'm bronze, like your reaction's probably going to be to judge that person, and they instantly will not feel welcome. You want to build their confidence up so that they feel a part of the community before you can kind of have that back and forth where, you know, like my mates will make fun of me because of my rank, but that's because I've known them for a really long time. If I walk into a room filled with people I've never met before and instantly go, oh, bronze scrub, go talk to them, like, no, I'm not coming back, right? Like, you got to ask me a question that can build me up into a conversation so that, like we said before, like having the human connection with someone is really important.
I think it's very, like, I think you brought up a good point, sort of, there's this idea of parasocial relationships where, like, you will act more familiar with someone than you actually are. And, like, you'll go straight in away with, like, the jokes or like, especially if you've been around in the society for a long time, like you're a second or a third year, and you've got in jokes, you've got sort of these ironic jokes. Like, with me and my friends, we'll often, like, call each other fake gamer girls as a joke because we're good friends, we've known each other for many years. But if I was a new student and a third year came up to me as, like, during my first time there and as a joke said, oh, you're a fake gamer girl, haha, I'd be like, I'm a bit that's a bit too familiar. I can't tell if this is ironic or not. It makes me feel very self-conscious. I think it's important to be aware of, like, not being too heavy with the cliques and the in-jokes and the ironic humour, and to be conscious of the language you use with new students to make sure they feel welcome and that they're not, like, outside of the circle, like the inner circle of committee members or whatever.
Yeah, I hated, as the chair, everyone knew my name, and they come up and be like, oh, Abby, I saw you doing this, like, oh, I watched the stream that you're doing. And there's that familiarity, but then I never, like, I don't know their name. I've met them before, right? And I remember, like, in what setting, but they would automatically assume that we were, like, best of friends because they followed me in a committee sense. And I hate the word banter. That's one thing that, like, automatically puts me off of a person if they feel like they can have, like, informal banter with me when I'm not familiar with them. And it's an easy thing to fall into. This kind of, like, parasocial relationship of, like, assuming you know a person. It's much better just to play it safe and just be a nice human being in general, you know, like, be kind, make sure that you welcome people, and keep up the practices that you have during the welcome period as well. Talking about cliques forming, if kind of, like, by December your society's kind of, like, plateaued, your membership steady, you might still get new people joining. And if you don't have that kind of, like, welcome hat on, where you're like, hey, what's your name? What course are you on? What role do you play? Then they don't have an in, they don't have that foot in the door again, and they're being excluded in that chance. So it's really important for a committee to keep the welcome hat on and keep an open mind to ensuring that everyone that's coming, it'll be a Discord event because of COVID, but if someone joins the channel and you don't recognize their username, you got to be switched on to welcome them in that sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of inclusivity talk comes down to language and the way that you talk with each other and the way that you talk to new people in Discord communities. And that's where things that we mentioned, like the community guidelines and the code of conduct, really help because they help manage that language that's going on in these communities. So I'm sure we could all keep talking all night about things like this, but we've actually run out of time. So it's we've had our half an hour, but we will be heading over to the Women in Games Discord now to facilitate any questions or any back and forth or networking. So if anyone wants to join us, we'll be over there.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.